There are moments in history when time itself seems to pause, when the air feels heavier, and when something unseen presses urgently against the soul. This is one of those moments. January 17th is not just another date on the calendar. It has been marked, weighed, and authorized in the spiritual realm. The countdown is active, and that alone should arrest your attention. Countdowns are not announced unless something irreversible is approaching. Heaven does not rush, and it does not panic, but it does set deadlines. When it does, it is not to create fear, but to awaken those who are listening. What you are hearing right now is not a suggestion, not inspiration, and not a motivational message. It is a warning wrapped in mercy, delivered before time runs out. There is a reason urgency is rising in your spirit as you listen. You may not fully understand it yet, but you can feel it. Something is closing. Something is shifting. Something that hath been held open, patiently, intentionally, is now approaching its final moment. The title of this message is not symbolic language. It is literal in the spiritual sense. Authorization had been issued, and authorization has an expiration. This is where many people misunderstand divine timing. They believe that if God wills something, it will happen no matter what. But Scripture, history, and lived experience all testify to a sobering truth. Divine opportunities often require human response, and when the window closes, it does not always reopen. January 17 stands as a line drawn in the sand. On one side is access, on the other is withdrawal. And what makes this moment so serious is not what is being offered, but who is holding it. When heaven assigns a guardian to an authorization, it signals the gravity of what is at stake. This is not about fear of punishment. It is about the weight of misalignment. There are moments when heaven leans in close to earth and says, "Now. Not later. Not soon. Now." And when that moment passes, heaven does not argue with human delay. It simply moves forward. You may be asking why this feels different from other warnings you've heard. It's because this one carries finality. Once this authorization is withdrawn, it cannot be reissued. That phrase should settle deeply within you. Not postponed, not reactivated, not reassigned. Withdrawn. There are permissions in the spiritual realm that are tied to seasons, roles, and readiness. When the season ends, the permission ends with it. Many people live their lives assuming there will always be another chance to obey, another moment to step forward, another nudge to respond. But Scripture is filled with moments where the door closed, the oil ran out, or the time expired. This message is not for everyone, and that is intentional. It is for those who have felt stalled at the edge of breakthrough, those who sensed acceleration coming but couldn't explain why, those who felt watched over yet pressed upon. It is for those who have been preserved through delays, protected through confusion, and positioned quietly while others were moving loudly. You are not late, but you are at the edge. And edges require decisions. The phrase "open now" is not an instruction for later contemplation. It is a command tied to timing. Open your awareness. Open your obedience. Open your alignment. There are things that only open when you do. Heaven responds to posture before it responds to action. And right now, heaven is watching posture. This is why procrastination feels dangerous in this moment. Delay is not neutral here. It leans toward loss. What makes this message shocking is not the warning itself, but the compassion behind it. You are being told before the withdrawal, not after. You are being alerted while there is still time on the clock. That alone is evidence of mercy. Many people only realize what they missed when silence replaces invitation. That is not what is happening here. This is a final call while authorization is still being held. Do not mistake calm delivery for lack of seriousness. The most dangerous moments are often announced quietly. This is not about panic. It is about clarity. You are being given clarity because clarity demands responsibility. Once you see the clock, you can no longer pretend you didn't know it was ticking. January 17th is not symbolic. It is specific. And specificity is how heaven confirms seriousness. If you feel resistance rising in you, that is not coincidence. If you feel urgency stirring without anxiety, that is alignment. If something within you says, "This is for me," do not silence it. This message exists because heaven is still holding the authorization, but not for long. This is the beginning of the message, not the peak. But beginnings matter. How you receive the opening determines how you will respond to what follows. The countdown has begun. And now that you are aware of it, the responsibility is no longer hidden. What you must understand now is that not all blessings are released in the same way. Some come through prayer. Some come through endurance. But others, rare and weighty, come through authorization. Authorization is permission granted from the highest order of heaven for something to move forward on earth. It is not a wish. It is not potential. It is an act of allowance. When authorization is present, resistance weakens, delays collapse, and doors that were sealed suddenly respond. But when authorization is absent, even effort feels heavy. This is why you may have sensed that despite your faith, something still felt paused. It wasn't denial. It was timing. Divine authorization is never random. It is issued when preparation, alignment, and purpose intersect. And once issued, it is guarded. That alone should tell you how serious this moment is. Heaven does not release authorization casually, and it does not leave it unattended. It is held because it is valuable. It is held because it is powerful. And it is held because not everyone is ready to carry what comes with it. Authorization is not just about receiving. It is about responsibility. What opens after this moment will require maturity, obedience, and movement. Many people believe that if something is meant for them, it will simply arrive without engagement. But Scripture repeatedly shows that authorization waits for response. The Red Sea did not part until feet stepped forward. The walls did not fall until obedience completed its cycle. The anointing did not flow until alignment was established. Authorization creates the condition for movement, but movement is still required. This is why this moment feels active rather than passive. Something is waiting on your awareness to become agreement. Right now, the authorization being held is time-sensitive. A detail changes everything. Time-sensitive authorization means the permission is attached to a window, not a lifetime. This is not about pressure. It is about precision. Heaven operates with precision. And when precision is involved, hesitation can cost access. There are assignments that, once missed, are not reassigned to the same individual. Not because of punishment, but because seasons move forward. Purpose continues. Heaven does not stall indefinitely for human indecision. You may feel the weight of the truth settling in your spirit. That weight is not meant to crush you. It is meant to awaken you. Awakening always feels uncomfortable at first because it disrupts familiarity. Comfort thrives in delay, but calling thrives in response. That is why this message is not soothing. It is stirring. It is meant to move you out of passive belief and into active alignment. This authorization is active now, not tomorrow, and not eventually. Now, an active means it can be accessed, but also that it can expire. That dual reality is what creates urgency without fear. You are not being chased. You are being invited. But invitations have times and dates. You would not receive a formal invitation to something that had no importance. The fact that this moment is being announced tells you that it matters. If you are listening to this, it is not by accident. Messages like this do not reach everyone. They reach those who are already positioned close to the threshold. You have been nearer than you realized. That is why resistance has intensified. That is why distraction has tried to pull your focus elsewhere. And that is why clarity is breaking through right now. Awareness precedes activation. This is where your response begins to matter. Not tomorrow. Not after you think about it. Response does not always mean action you can see. Sometimes response begins with agreement in the heart and declaration with the mouth. This is why engagement matters in moments like this. When you acknowledge a message, you align with its timing. When you ignore it, you drift out of alignment without realizing it. This is also why I need to speak to you directly now. If this message is resonating, do not remain silent. Interaction is not about algorithms. It is about agreement. When you like this message, when you comment, when you share it with someone who needs to hear it, you are not just supporting a channel, you are responding to a call. Alignment often begins with simple acts of recognition. And when you subscribe, you are choosing to remain connected to the unfolding of this message rather than stepping away before the picture is complete. This is not hype. This is positioning. Heaven responds to posture, and posture is often revealed through response. You are not being asked to do something dramatic. You are being asked to be present, aware, and willing. That alone separates watchers from participants. What is being authorized will not force itself into your life. It will wait until the window closes, and then it will move on. That is not meant to alarm you. It is meant to honor your free will. Heaven never violates it, but it does respond to it. As this message continues, deeper layers will be revealed. What is being held, why it matters, and what happens next. But none of that will have meaning if this foundation is ignored. Authorization is from heaven, but access is through response. This is not the end of the message. It is the threshold. And how you engage now determines how much further you will be able to go. There is a reason this authorization is not being held by a messenger of comfort, but by a guardian of order. When Archangel Michael appears in moments like this, it signals enforcement, protection, and finality. Michael does not arrive for gentle reminders. He stands at thresholds where decisions carry consequence and where timing determines outcome. His involvement tells you that this is not merely a personal turning point. It is a moment where heaven is actively securing what must not fall into disorder. When Michael holds authorization, it means something is being defended until its appointed release or withdrawal. Throughout scripture and spiritual history, Michael's presence is connected to battles over territory, timing, and divine order. He does not negotiate with delay. He does not accommodate hesitation. He stands where heaven's will must be carried out without compromise. That is why his role here matters so deeply. This authorization is not floating freely. It is not unattended. It is being held firmly, intentionally, and for a limited time. That alone tells you that what is being authorized carries weight beyond personal comfort. It affects alignment, direction, and protection. You may wonder why such authority is involved in what feels like a personal decision. But understand this clearly. Personal obedience often has collective impact. When someone steps into alignment at the right time, it creates movement beyond what they can see. And when someone hesitates at a critical moment, it creates gaps. Michael's assignment is to guard against disorder, to ensure that what heaven has ordained is not mishandled, misused, or delayed beyond its season. His presence means heaven is serious about timing. This is also why resistance has increased around you. When Michael is involved, opposition does not disappear, it intensifies. Not because you are losing ground, but because something is about to be secured. Opposition often grows loudest right before enforcement. Distraction, fatigue, doubt, and delay all attempt to crowd the mind at moments like this. They are not random. They are signals that something significant is at stake. Michael does not engage where nothing matters. Another reason Michael's involvement is critical is protection. Authorization opens doors, but it also attracts attention. Not everyone celebrates your advancement. Not every force benefits from your alignment. Michael stands to ensure that what opens does so under divine protection. This is not reckless acceleration. This is guarded movement. That is why obedience is required. Protection follows alignment, not curiosity. You may feel a sense of being watched, not in fear but in awareness. That feeling is not imagination. Moments like this are observed in the unseen realm. Decisions are noted. Responses are weighed. Heaven watches how you respond when the invitation carries urgency. This is not about perfection. It is about posture. Michael does not look for flawlessness. He looks for readiness. Readiness does not mean having every answer. It means being willing to move when called. Many people delay because they want clarity before commitment. But in moments of authorization, commitment often precedes clarity. This is why faith is required here, not blind faith, but responsive faith. The kind that says, I may not understand everything yet, but I recognize the moment. This message is reaching those who are already marked for responsibility. If this were not you, it would pass over you without impact. The fact that it lingers, presses, and stirs you is evidence that you are already connected to what is being held. Michael does not guard what does not belong. He guards what is assigned. There is also a sobering truth you must hear. When Michael steps away, access closes. Not dramatically, not loudly, simply obliquely. And once he withdraws, the authorization does not linger in the air. It goes with him. That is why this moment feels final. Unthreatening, final. Finality brings clarity. Clarity demands response. As this unfolds, you will begin to see why delay is dangerous here. This is not a moment to observe from a distance. It is a moment to decide where you stand. Watchers remain unchained. Responders are transformed. Heaven honors response. And before we move forward, let this settle deeply within you. What comes next will explain more, but understanding alone will not move the clock. Only response will. Hold on. What comes next changes everything. Type I stand ready in the comments if this resonates with you. Blessing code 831 is now activated. I want to speak directly to those who feel the weight of this moment and know it is not just for them alone. When you sow into this mission, you are not supporting a channel. You are releasing light into places still trapped in silence. The word says that when seed is placed into good soil, heaven commands the harvest. And I declare that God is speaking that promise over you right now. I am asking you to respond as an act of obedience, not generosity, because obedience unlocks rivers that generosity alone cannot. This message must reach the ones standing at their own deadline, and your action helps carry it to them. Do not delay what God is pressing on your heart in this very moment. Give through Super Thanks, membership, or the PayPal link in the description, or the PayPal QR code you see flashing now. So now, and watch heaven respond. Here is a phrase that carries more weight than most people realize. Time is running out. In ordinary life, it sounds dramatic. In the spiritual realm, it is factual. Authorization does not drift into expiration slowly. It reaches a moment where it simply is no longer valid. That moment does not announce itself with noise or chaos. It arrives quietly, decisively, and without negotiation. This is why this part of the message is critical. You must understand what expiration truly means, because many people misunderstand it until it is too late. When heaven sets an expiration, it is not acting in anger, it is acting in order. Divine order requires movement. Seasons are designed to progress, not linger indefinitely. An open window that remains open too long stops being a window and becomes disorder. This is why expiration exists. It protects the integrity of timing. It ensures that what is meant for a moment is not dragged into a season where it no longer fits. The danger is not that expiration happens. The danger is assuming it will not. Many people live with the belief that delay is harmless, that obedience postponed is still obedience. But delayed obedience often becomes disobedience without intention. Not because the heart was rebellious, but because the moment passed. Heaven does not punish missed moments. It honors the structure of time. And time moves forward whether we respond or not. What happens when authorization expires is not always immediately visible. This is where people become confused. They expect thunder, loss, or sudden collapse. But more often, what follows expiration is silence. The urgency fades. The pressure lifts. The stirring quiets. And people mistake that calm for peace, not realizing it is absence. Absence of invitation. Absence of access. Absence of alignment. Silence can feel comfortable, but comfort is not confirmation. This is why the warning is being given before expiration, not after. Afterward, there would be no reason to warn you. Warnings exist only while joy still exists. Once authorization is withdrawn, heaven does not continue to persuade. It moves on to the next phase of its plan. That does not mean you are abandoned. It means the opportunity tied to that specific moment is complete. There are patterns throughout Scripture that reveal this truth. Doors close while people were still knocking. Oil ran out while others were still preparing. Invitations were declined until the feast began without them. These were not stories of cruelty. They were stories of timing. Heaven honors readiness, not regret. One of the most sobering aspects of expiration is that it often feels like nothing happened. Life continues. Days pass. But something subtle shifts. Momentum stalls. Progress requires more effort. A sense of always becomes familiar. People say, I feel like I was close once, without realizing that closeness was the window. And the window closed quietly. This message is not meant to produce fear. Fear clouds judgment. This message is meant to produce clarity. Clarity sharpens response. You are being told plainly, this authorization will not remain open indefinitely. It has an endpoint, and once it passes, it cannot be reissued. Not because heaven is unwilling, but because the season itself will have moved on. There is also a mercy in expiration that many people overlook. Expiration prevents misuse. It prevents half-hearted engagement. It prevents dragging divine permission into seasons where it could cause harm. Heaven would rather withdraw authorization than allow it to be mishandled. That withdrawal is not rejection. It is protection of purpose. But protection of purpose does not erase consequence. When a moment is missed, something else takes its place. Not always something bad. Sometimes just something different. But different is not the same as original. Paths diverge. Timelines adjust. And while God remains faithful, certain accelerations do not repeat. You may feel a heaviness as you hear this, but that heaviness is not condemnation. It is seriousness. Seriousness is appropriate here. This is not a casual invitation. It is a time-bound one. And your awareness of that fact is itself a gift. Ask yourself honestly, if this moment were to expire tonight, would you be at peace with how you responded? Not emotionally, but spiritually. Peace follows alignment, not intention. This question is not meant to accuse you. It is meant to center you. Heaven is not counting your mistakes. It is watching your response. Expiration is not about tallying failures. It is about concluding seasons. And seasons conclude whether or not we feel ready. Readiness is proven by movement, not comfort. As you continue listening, understand this. The warning itself is evidence that access still exists. You are not hearing this after the door closed. You are hearing it while the door is still open, but closing. That distinction matters more than you realize. The next part will speak into what it means to respond while there is still time, and how action differs from panic. But before moving forward, let this truth settle firmly. Expiration is real, silence is not peace, and moments like this do not repeat themselves easily. This is not meant to frighten you. It is meant to wake you while waking is still possible. There are moments when heaven does not whisper. It speaks plainly, firmly, and without room for delay. Open now is one of those moments. This is not poetic language. It is not metaphor meant to be admired and interpreted slowly. It is a command bound to timing. When heaven says open, it is aggressing access. When it says now, it is aggressing urgency. Together, they form a directive that cannot be postponed without consequence. This is where many people struggle, not because they do not believe, but because they hesitate at the threshold. To open now does not mean rushing blindly or acting emotionally. It means aligning immediately. Alignment is an internal shift before it is an external one. Heaven responds first to posture, then to movement. You can appear busy on the outside while remaining closed on the inside. But you can also open inwardly in a single moment, and everything around you begins to rearrange. That is what this call is about. It is not about dramatic gestures. It is about decisive agreement. Many people wait for certainty before they open. They want guarantees, confirmation, and visible signs. But authorization moments rarely provide comfort before commitment. Comfort usually comes after obedience. This is why open now feels uncomfortable to the mind. The mind prefers control. The spirit recognizes timing. And in moments like this, the spirit must lead. To open now means releasing delay. Delay often disguises itself as wisdom. People say they are being cautious, prayerful, or patient, when in reality they are avoiding the discomfort of decision. But patience is not the same as postponement. Patience waits within obedience. Postponement waits outside of it. This moment does not call for waiting, it calls for opening. Opening now also means allowing movement where there has been stagnation. Some doors remain closed not because heaven has locked them, but because fear has bolted them from the inside. The fear of change, fear of responsibility, fear of loss, fear of being wrong. But fear is never a reliable indicator of divine direction. It speaks loudly at moments of transition, precisely because it senses movement coming. This call is also deeply personal. No one else can open for you. No one else can respond in your place. This is not a collective decision. It is an individual one with collective impact. Heaven aggresses people one by one, even when the moment affects many. That is why this message feels like it is speaking directly to you. To open now means choosing responsiveness over familiarity. Familiarity feels safe, even when it produces no growth. The unknown feels risky, even when it carries advancement. Heaven often requires us to trade the safety of what we know for the promise of what we are called into. That trade cannot be made slowly. It must be made decisively. There is also a spiritual sensitivity required here. Opening now does not mean opening everything. It means opening what heaven is addressing. Discernment matters. This is not about impulsiveness. It is about obedience. Obedience listens carefully, then moves clearly. That clarity is available to you now, but it will not remain indefinitely. You may feel a pull in a specific area of your life, an instruction you have been postponing, a step you have delayed. Yes, you have been holding back. That pull is not random. It is connected to this moment. Heaven often speaks through convergence. Messages align. Themes repeat. Pressure increases. All of that is happening now for a reason. Another truth you must hear is this. Opening now does not mean everything resolves instantly. Obedience does not eliminate process, but it does activate progress. There is a difference between struggle with movement and struggle without it. One leads somewhere. The other exhausts you in place. This call is about movement. There is also protection in immediate obedience. Delayed obedience leaves you exposed. When authorization is active, protection accompanies response. When authorization expires, protection shifts. This is why timing matters. It is not just about what opens, it is about what covers you while it opens. Some people assume that if they miss this moment, another identical one will appear later. That assumption has caused more stagnation than rebellion ever has. Heaven is creative, but seasons are specific. You are not promised repetition. You are promised opportunity. And opportunity must be seized. Opening now may feel like stepping without full visibility. But you are not stepping into darkness. You are stepping into alignment. Alignment always brings light with it, even if you cannot see far ahead yet. Light moves with obedience. This is also where trust becomes tangible. Trust is not proven by belief alone. It is proven by response under pressure. Heaven does not measure your faith by your feelings, but by your movement when timing is involved. As this part comes to a close, understand this clearly. Open now is not demanding perfection. It is demanding honesty. Are you willing to respond while the window is still open? Are you willing to move before comfort arrives? Are you willing to trust timing more than familiarity? The next part will speak to who this moment is truly for, and why not everyone feels this urgency. But before moving forward, let this settle. Opening later is not the same as opening now. And now is the word heaven has chosen. Not everyone feels this urgency, and that distinction matters more than you realize. If this message stirs you while others remain unmoved, it is not because you are more emotional or more fearful. It is because you are marked for this moment. Marking is not favoritism, it is assignment. Heaven does not alert everyone to the same deadlines because not everyone carries the same responsibility. Some are observers in this season. Others are responders. And responders feel time differently. Those marked for this moment often share a similar history. You have experienced delay without denial. You have felt protected even when confused. You have sensed that your life has been preserved for something specific, even when progress felt slow. There were moments you should have fallen apart, but you didn't. Moments you should have quit, but you were held. But preservation was not accidental. It was positioning. Being marked does not mean life had been easy. In fact, it often means the opposite. Marked individuals face unusual resistance before unusual release. They experience pressure without explanation. They feel urgency without visible cause. They sense that waiting is no longer neutral. This is not anxiety. It is alignment approaching activation. Another sign of marking is sensitivity to timing. You feel when moments matter. You can sense when something is closing even if nothing external has changed. This sensitivity is not common, and it is not random. It develops through obedience, endurance, and awareness. Heaven trusts sensitive vessels with time-bound assignments because they can feel when movement is required. Marked individuals are also often misunderstood. Others may not see why you feel pressed to act. They may advise patience when the season demands movement. They may call your urgency unnecessary or dramatic, but they are not standing where you are standing. Heaven speaks contextually. What is not urgent for them may be critical for you. There is also a cost to being marked: accountability. When you are alerted to timing, you are responsible for your response. Ignorance shields many people from consequence, but awareness removes that shield. This is not punishment, it is trust. Heaven does not warn those it intends to ignore. Warning is evidence of expectation. You may wonder how you were marked in the first place. Marking often happens quietly long before manifestation. It can occur through early responsibility, through seasons of isolation, through repeated testing, or through prolonged preparation that felt unnecessary at the time. All of that was shaping your capacity to respond when timing became critical. Another trait of those marked is a deep discomfort with stagnation. You can endure hardship, but you struggle with stillness that lacks purpose. When progress stalls without explanation, something inside you begins to push. That push is not impatience. It is calling, refusing to remain dormant. This moment is not about proving yourself worthy. Worthiness is not earned at deadlines. It is revealed through readiness. Readiness means you can respond without needing everything to be explained. It means you trust the timing even when the outcome is still unfolding. Those marked for this moment are also often the ones who hesitate the most. That may sound contradictory, but it is true. Responsibility creates caution. You understand that your decisions carry weight, so you do not move lightly. But there is a difference between caution and delay. This message exists to draw that line clearly. You are not being rushed into recklessness. You are being called out of hesitation. Heaven is not asking for impulse. It is asking for obedience aligned with timing. And timing is the one element you cannot store for later use. There is also a reason others may not be hearing what you are hearing. Heaven filters messages by readiness. Not everyone is prepared to respond, so not everyone is alerted. That is not exclusion. It is protection. Pressure given to the unready becomes confusion. Clarity given to the ready becomes direction. If you feel exposed by this message, that is not condemnation. Exposure precedes empowerment. What is brought into the light can be acted upon. What remains hidden cannot. This message is drawing you into the light of decision. Being marked also means you are being trusted with impact beyond yourself. Your response affects others, even if you cannot see how yet. Delayed obedience does not only affect you, it affects the chain connected to you. That is why timing matters so much here. You may feel a quiet resolve forming as you listen. Not excitement, not fear. Resolve. That is a sign of readiness. Resolve is calm agreement with necessity. It is the posture heaven looks for at moments like this. As we move forward, the message will become even more specific. But before that happens, you must accept this truth. If this urgency lives in you, it is because this moment was designed with you in mind. You are not intruding. You are not misreading. You are responding to a signal meant for you. The next part will address what happens when this moment is ignored, and why heaven calls that warning an act of mercy. But for now, let this settle. You are marked. You are aware, and awareness is the invitation to respond. There is a reason heaven warns before it withdraws, and it is not because heaven enjoys repeating itself. Warnings are acts of mercy. They exist to prevent loss, not to announce it. But mercy does not cancel consequence. It offers an escape from it. When a countdown is ignored, the cost is not always immediate, and that is what makes it so dangerous. People expect instant thought. They expect something dramatic to happen so they can recognize the mistake. But the true cost of ignoring a divine countdown is often subtle, delayed, and quietly devastating. The first cost is misalignment. Alignment is not just about being on the right path. It is about being on the right path at the right time. You can be doing good things and still miss the best thing because timing was off. When a countdown expires, alignment shifts. What once felt clear becomes cloudy. What once felt purposeful begins to feel forced. You still move, but without the same ease, without the same grace, without the same covering. Another cost is lost momentum. Momentum is a spiritual resource, and it is not endless. When heaven builds momentum around a moment, it does so to carry you forward with less resistance. Ignoring that momentum means you will later have to generate movement through effort alone. Effort is not evil, but it is exhausting when grace was available and unused. Many people burn out not because their calling is wrong, but because they missed the window where grace was strongest. There is also the cost of increased confusion. When authorization is active, clarity accompanies it. Decisions feel cleaner. Discernment feels sharper. But when authorization is withdrawn, clarity often fades. Not because God has stopped speaking, but because the instruction for that season has concluded. People then begin to overthink, second-guess, and circle the same questions repeatedly, unaware that the answer belonged to a moment that has passed. Another cost is relational strain. Missed moments often affect relationships in ways people don't expect. Doors that were meant to open together begin to drift apart. Ghanaians weaken. Alignment between people fades. Not out of conflict, but out of timing. When one person responds and another delays, distance forms naturally. Seasons separate those who move from those who wait. There is also a cost to confidence. Ignoring a clear inner prompting trains the heart to distrust itself. Each time urgency is ignored, sensitivity dulls slightly. Over time, people stop recognizing divine nudges altogether. They tell themselves they are being cautious, but what they are really doing is becoming disconnected from timing. That disconnection makes future decisions harder, not easier. Perhaps the most painful cost is regret, but not the emotional kind. This is not regret that cries loudly. It is regret that whispers quietly years later. It sounds like, "I wonder what would have happened if I had moved then." It surfaces in moments of stagnation, in seasons where progress feels slower than it should be. It is the ache of knowing you were close, aware, and invited, but hesitant. Heaven does not remind you of what you missed. It does not shame you with flashbacks. The regret comes from within, from the awareness that you recognized the moment and chose comfort over response. That awareness is heavy, not because God is angry, but because truth is clear. Ignoring the countdown also has a cost in future trust. When heaven assigns responsibility and it is not honored, future assignments may come with less urgency, less clarity, or less impact, not as punishment but as adjustment. Heaven entrusts weight to those who respond under pressure. Trust grows through obedience, not intention. It is important to understand that ignoring a countdown does not mean your life collapses. That is a misconception that keeps people from taking warnings seriously. Life continues. You still wake up. You still function. But something quiet shifts. The sense of this as it fades. The fire dims. And people mistake that numbness for peace. Peace is not the absence of urgency. Peace is alignment with timing. Silence after urgency is not peace. It is closure. And closure without completion is painful in ways people struggle to articulate. This is why heaven warns clearly. This is why this message exists. You are being given the chance to respond while response still matters. The cost being described is not meant to scare you. It is meant to sober you. Soberness brings clarity. Clarity restores choice. If you feel resistance rising as you hear this, pause and ask yourself why. Resistance often reveals where comfort is being challenged. Comfort is not evil, but it is a poor guide at moments of transition. Growth rarely feels comfortable at the threshold. This part of the message is not about condemnation. It is about consequence. Consequence is neutral. It simply follows choice. Heaven honors free will completely, even when free will leads to loss. But mercy always tries to intervene before loss becomes permanent. As you move into the next part, understand this. The warning itself is proof that the cost can still be avoided. You are not hearing this from the aftermath. You are hearing it before the countdown reaches zero. The next part will reveal how heaven observes response, and why response time matters more than intention. But before we go there, let this truth settle deeply. Ignoring the countdown costs more than comfort can compensate for, and the price is often paid quietly over time. There is a truth few people are comfortable with, yet it governs moments like this with precision. Response time matters in heaven. Not intention, not emotion, not explanation. Response. Heaven does not merely observe outcomes. It observes reactions to instruction. When authorization is active, the unseen realm is attentive, not with judgment, but with discernment. This is not surveillance driven by suspicion. It is observation driven by order. Heaven watches because timing reveals readiness in ways words never can. Many assume that as long as the heart means well, timing is flexible. But intention without movement is incomplete. In the spiritual realm, intention is acknowledged, but response is recorded. When instruction is time-bound, hesitation communicates something clearly, even if unintentionally. It communicates unreadiness to carry what is being offered. This is not condemnation. It is assessment. Heaven assesses before it entrusts. You must understand this carefully. Heaven is not watching to see if you fail. It is watching to see if you recognize the moment. Recognition is demonstrated through response. Even a small response made in alignment carries more weight than grand intentions delayed beyond the window. Timing magnifies obedience. Delay dilutes it. This is why response time matters more than understanding. Many people want to fully understand before they move. But understanding often comes because you move. Heaven does not explain everything in advance, because explanation without obedience produces spectators, not stewards. Stewards move with what they are given and receive more along the way. When heaven observes response, it is also observing trust. Trust is not passive belief. It is active alignment. You trust the timing enough to act within it. You trust the instruction enough to respond before comfort arrives. That kind of trust cannot be faked. It shows itself only under pressure. There are moments when heaven leans in closer, not because it doubts you, but because it is about to decide what comes next. Those moments feel intense because they are decisive. This is one of those moments. The attention you feel is not threat, it is transition. Some people misunderstand this attention and shrink back. They interpret awareness as danger, but awareness is opportunity. Heaven does not watch moments that do not matter. It watches threshold, and thresholds require movement. Another truth you must hear is that heaven's observation is not delayed. Response is noted in real time. There is no long review process. Alignment is immediate. So is misalignment. This is why moments like this feel urgent. Urgency is the signal that timing is narrow. You may feel a tension inside you, a pull between staying where you are and moving forward. That tension is not confusion. It is decision forming. Decisions are rarely comfortable when they carry weight. Comfort usually follows after commitment. Heaven is also observing consistency. Response is not only about a single action. It is about willingness. Willingness opens doors even before steps are taken. Resistance closes them quietly. Heaven can tell the difference. This is why your posture right now matters. Are you leaning in or pulling back? Are you engaging or distancing yourself emotionally to avoid responsibility? These inner movements matter. They speak louder than words. What makes this moment sacred is not the pressure. It is the possibility. Possibility exists only while choice remains. And choice exists only while authorization is active. That is why heaven is watching now, not later. This is also why this message keeps unfolding layer by layer. Heaven does not overwhelm at once. It reveals progressively, watching how you respond at each stage. Progression tests readiness. Each layer invites agreement. Each agreement leads to the next reveal. If you are still listening, still attentive, still wrestling honestly with what you are hearing, that itself is a response. Do not minimize that. Heaven does not look for perfection. It looks for engagement. Engagement is the doorway to activation. But understand this as well. Engagement must eventually become action. Awareness without action becomes burden. Burden without movement becomes heaviness. Heaven does not want you burdened. It wants you aligned. This part of the message is not meant to make you self-conscious. It is meant to make you conscious. Conscious of timing. Conscious of choice. Conscious of the weight of now. As we move closer to what comes next, know this. The way you respond here affects what you will be trusted with later. Heaven expands responsibility for those who respond promptly, not those who delay perfectly. Stay with this message, not out of fear, but out of reverence for timing. You'll be glad you stayed for what's about to be revealed. Type "I respond" in faith in the comments if this stirred your spirit. Blessing code 946 is now activated. What you are feeling right now is not emotion. It is calling, and calling demands response. When you sow into this work, you are placing seed into a river that carries truth to souls standing at their own critical hour. God is speaking His promise over you now, saying that what you release in obedience will return pressed down and overflowing. I am inviting you personally to act, because this is not about helping me. It is about heaven reaching them. This moment is prophetic, and delay would mean missing alignment. Step forward now through Super Thanks, membership, or the PayPal link in the description, or the PayPal QR code flashing on your screen. Give now, and let your obedience speak louder than words. There comes a point in every divine countdown where awareness must crystallize into action. Not symbolic action, not internal agreement alone, but movement that seals alignment. This is that point. Everything you have heard up to now has been preparing you for this truth. Moments are not sealed by intention, they are sealed by response. Heaven does not mark moments complete when people understand them. Heaven marks moments complete when people act within them. Action is the language of agreement. It is how faith becomes visible. Many people believe faith is something you feel, but in critical moments like this, faith is something you do. Action does not always look dramatic, but it is always decisive. It draws a clear line between those who observed the moment and those who entered it. Sealing the moment means removing ambiguity. It means choosing alignment without leaving a door open for retreat. This is why delayed action is so dangerous. It keeps the door half open. Half-open doors create instability. Heaven works with clarity, not hesitation. When you act, you clarify your position in the spiritual realm. This is also where many people misunderstand obedience. They think obedience is about performing something perfectly. It is not. Obedience is about responding promptly. Prompt response carries more weight than flawless execution delayed beyond the window. Heaven can correct movement. It cannot activate movement that never begins. Action also locks in protection. When authorization is active, response activates covering. This is why waiting until you feel ready can leave you exposed. Readiness is often the result of movement, not the requirement for it. Those who move under authorization are covered while they move. Those who delay step outside that covering without realizing it. Another reason action matters is that it breaks the power of indecision. Indecision drains energy. It keeps the mind cycling and the spirit restless. Action resolves that tension. Even small action taken in alignment releases peace, because peace follows obedience, not contemplation. This is where many people lose momentum. They feel stirred, worn, awakened, but they do nothing. And slowly, the urgency fades. Not because the moment passed immediately, but because resistance wore them down. Heaven does not chase people into obedience. It invites, warns, and waits within the boundary of time. After that, it moves on. Sealing the moment also means bearing witness. Action is not only personal, it is declarative. It declares to the unseen realm that you recognize authority and timing. That declaration matters. Spiritual realms respond to clarity. When you act, you align not just internally, but atmospherically. This is why visible engagement matters right now. When you respond openly, through agreement, through participation, through aligning yourself with this message, you are not just supporting content. You are declaring that you recognize the moment. When you like this message, when you comment, when you share it, you are marking your response in real time. When you subscribe, you are choosing continuity over detachment. These are not empty gestures. They are signals of alignment. Heaven does not need grand gestures. It looks for honest ones. Simple actions taken at the right time carry enormous weight. Many people miss moments because they underestimate the power of small, timely responses. There is also a communal aspect to sealing this moment. Alignment strengthens in agreement. When others respond alongside you, momentum increases. That is why moments like this are rarely meant to be faced alone. Care and urgency sharpens clarity. Collective response amplifies impact. But hear this clearly. No one else can act for you. Community can support, but it cannot substitute. You must decide. Waiting for others to move first is another form of delay. Heaven addresses individuals before it moves through groups. This is also where courage comes in. Action always carries exposure. Once you move, you cannot pretend you did not hear. But exposure is not danger, it is honesty. Honest obedience is always safer than hidden hesitation. You may feel a final resistance rising here. That resistance is not confusion. It is the last attempt of familiarity to keep its grip. Familiar patterns do not want to release control. But control is not calling. Calling requires trust. If you are wondering what specific action you are meant to take, start with response. Response unlocks clarity. Movement reveals next steps. Obedience is progressive. You are not required to solve everything now. You are required to move now. This is not pressure. It is precision. Heaven is precise with timing because timing protects purpose. And purpose is what is at stake here. As we approach the final parts of this message, understand this. This moment is being sealed right now, either by action or by delay. There is no neutral ground. Even choosing not to act is an action in the spiritual realm. Stay with this. Do not disengage now. What is coming next will bring clarity about what shifts after this moment passes. You will want to understand that difference. What comes next will confirm why sealing this moment matters more than you think. There is a reason heaven marks dates, even though eternity itself is not bound by time. Dates create distinction. They separate before from after. They draw a line that cannot be blurred by emotion or reinterpretation. January 17th is one of those lines. What changes after it is not always visible immediately, but it is decisive. An understanding that change is critical because many people mistake continuation for confirmation. After a moment like this passes, the spiritual atmosphere shifts. Not dramatically, not loudly, but distinctly. The pressure that once urged you forward lifts. The urgency that once stirred you quiets. And people often misinterpret that silence as peace, not realizing that peace and quiet are not the same thing. Quiet can mean a door has closed. One of the first changes after a deadline passes is access. What once felt reachable now feels distant. Prayers that once felt sharp now feel routine. Discernment that once felt clear now feels muted. This does not mean God has withdrawn His presence. It means the permission tied to that moment has concluded. Heaven does not remain in invitation mode after a window closes. Another change is direction. It hath subtly aroused. Not away from purpose entirely, but away from acceleration. To appear where direct routes once existed. Progress becomes slower, more effort-based. Grace is still present, but it is no longer concentrated in that specific direction. This is where many people become confused. They sense they are still called, but everything feels heavier. That heaviness is not resistance. It is the absence of timing. There is also a change in protection. Authorization comes with covering. When authorization expires, covering adjusts. This does not mean danger suddenly surrounds you. It means movement now requires greater caution, greater effort, and greater discernment. What once unfolded smoothly now requires planning, backup, and strain. Heaven does not remove protection. It reallocates it according to season. Another shift happens internally. The sense of expectancy fades. People stop looking forward with anticipation and begin settling into maintenance. Maintenance is not failure, but it is not expansion. Life becomes about sustaining rather than advancing. Many people live years in maintenance mode, unaware that they once stood at a gateway to more. After January 17th, choices will still exist, but they will not carry the same leverage. Timing multiplies impact. Outside of timing, effort must compensate. This is why moments like this matter so much. They compress effort. They concentrate grace. When that compression ends, movement requires more from you. Some people will not notice these changes immediately. They will feel relief. Relief that the pressure is gone. Relief that decision no longer feels urgent. That relief is deceptive. It is the calm after conclusion, not the peace of alignment. Peace energizes. Relief numbs. Another significant change after a deadline is memory. The clarity you feel now will begin to fade. You will remember that you once felt stirred, but the intensity will soften. This is not because the moment wasn't real. It is because moments are preserved only through response. Without response, memory dulls to protect the heart from regret. This is why people later say, "I don't know why I didn't move then." They are not lying. The urgency genuinely feels distant. That distance is mercy, but it also confirms closure. Heaven does not torment people with constant reminders of missed windows. It allows memory to soften so life can continue. But continuation is not the same as fulfillment. Fulfillment requires alignment at critical points. Those points do not repeat endlessly. Heaven is generous, but it is also order. It does not recycle seasons endlessly, hoping someone will eventually respond. After January 17th, those who responded will experience a different kind of movement. Not always immediately visible, but internally anchored. They will feel peace even when things are unclear. Confidence even when outcomes are still forming. That peace is confirmation. It comes from alignment, not circumstance. Those who did not respond will still be loved, still guided, still sustained. But something will feel unfinished. Not dramatically broken, just incomplete. And incomplete things tend to resurface as restlessness later on. This is not meant to create fear about the future. It is meant to bring clarity to the present. Futures are shaped by present responses. Heaven reveals consequences not to threaten, but to inform. If you are still listening at this point, it means you are weighing your response seriously. That is good. But weighing must eventually lead to decision. The scales cannot remain balanced forever. Time tips them. The next part will speak into divine protection for those who respond in time, the assurance that obedience is never wasted, even when outcomes unfold slowly. But before moving forward, understand this. After January 17th, the question will no longer be should I respond. It will be how do I live with how I responded. That question is being formed right now. One of the greatest misconceptions about obedience is that it guarantees ease. It does not. What obedience guarantees is protection, alignment, and covering through what unfolds next. When heaven calls for response within a specific window, it does not do so to expose you. It does so to shield you. Protection is not the absence of challenge. It is the presence of order in the midst of challenge. And for those who respond in time, that order becomes unmistakable. Divine protection operates differently from human expectation. People often imagine protection as prevention, nothing bad happening, no resistance appearing, no uncertainty arising. But heaven's protection is more precise. It preserves purpose. It guards trajectory. It ensures that what you step into does not consume what you were meant to carry forward. Obedience places you inside that boundary. When authorization is active and you respond within its time frame, protection activates alongside movement. This protection is not always visible, but it is effective. It shows up as restraint when you might have rushed, as clarity when confusion tried to take hold, as peace when pressure increased. You may not always recognize it in the moment, but you will often see it in hindsight, realizing what did not happen because you were covered. Another aspect of divine protection is redirection. Obedient people are often protected from paths that look appealing but would ultimately derail them. That protection may feel like delay, interruption, or even disappointment at first. But later, clarity comes. You begin to see that what you were spared from mattered as much as what you were led into. Protection often works quietly, steering rather than stopping. There is also emotional protection for those who respond in time. Regret does not have authority over aligned hearts. Even when outcomes take time to manifest, obedience produces peace that sustains. You do not second-guess yourself endlessly. You do not replay the moment wondering if you missed it. That internal stability is a form of protection many people underestimate. Divine protection also guards identity. Moments like this can easily become identity-defining if mishandled. People who miss critical windows often internalize failure, believing they themselves were the problem. But those who respond, even imperfectly, are protected from that narrative. Their identity remains intact because their obedience confirms their alignment, regardless of outcome. Another layer of protection is acceleration with boundaries. When heaven moves you forward, it does not do so recklessly. Protection ensures that acceleration does not outpace maturity. Doors open, but not all at once. Increase comes, but with restraint. This prevents collapse under the weight of what you prayed for. Obedience invites increase. Protection ensures you can carry it. There is also spiritual protection. Obedience places you under authority, and authority provides covering. When you move in alignment, you are not standing exposed. You are operating within divine order. Opposition may still exist, but it cannot access what is covered. Resistance loses leverage when authority is honored. For those who respond in time, even mistakes are protected. Errors made in obedience are correctable. Missteps taken while aligned are redirected, not punished. Heaven can work with imperfect obedience far more easily than with perfect delay. Protection ensures that learning does not become loss. It is important to understand that protection does not mean everything will make sense immediately. Often, obedience feels like stepping into uncertainty. But uncertainty under protection is safer than clarity outside of it. Many people choose familiarity over protection because familiarity feels predictable. But predictability without alignment is fragile. Divine protection also extends to timing itself. When you respond in time, you are protected from premature exposure. You are not thrust into what you cannot yet sustain. You are introduced gradually. This preserves longevity. Heaven is not interested in brief moments of success. It is interested in sustained alignment. Another overlooked aspect of protection is rest. Obedient people experience rest even when busy. That rest is not inactivity, it is inner stillness. It allows you to function without burning out. That rest comes from knowing you responded when it mattered. Peace anchors you when progress feels slow. Protection also manifests relationally. Connections that need to remain are preserved. Connections that would hinder you begin to loosen naturally. This is not always dramatic. It often happens quietly, without conflict. Alignment clarifies relationships without forcing separation. If you are wondering whether obedience will cost you something, the answer is yes. It may cost you comfort. But protection ensures it does not cost you calling. Comfort can always be regained later. Calling cannot always be recovered once timing is missed. This part of the message exists to reassure you. Heaven does not call people into response and then abandon them. Authorization is not a test meant to trap you. It is an invitation meant to cover you. Obedience positions you inside care, not danger. As we approach the final part, remember this: protection is already prepared for those who respond. You are not stepping into uncertainty alone. You are stepping into alignment under watchful authority. The final part will bring everything together: urgency, assurance, hope, and peace, so that you end this message not anxious but grounded. But before that, let this truth settle deeply. Obedience is not risky when timing is divine. It is the safest place you can stand. This is where everything comes together, not in fear, not in pressure, but in clarity and truth. You have heard the warning, you have felt the urgency, and you now understand what is at stake. But this final moment is not about anxiety. It is about assurance. Heaven does not reveal deadlines to frighten you. It reveals them to give you the dignity of choice. And right now, that choice is still yours. The countdown is not meant to make you feel small. It is meant to awaken you to how seen you are. Heaven would not speak this clearly if your response did not matter. You would not be hearing this if your alignment were irrelevant. The very fact that this message reached you before the withdrawal is evidence of care. Mercy always arrives before finality. Take a breath here, not to relax into delay, but to ground yourself in truth. You are not behind. You are not disqualified. You are not being tested for failure. You are being invited into alignment while alignment is still possible. A distinction changes everything. Heaven is not asking you to strive. It is asking you to respond. This is also the moment where fear must be released completely. Fear distorts timing. Fear exaggerates consequence. Fear convinces people that obedience is dangerous. But obedience is not what places you at risk. Delay does. What heaven is calling you into is covered, guarded, and ordered. You are not stepping into chaos. You are stepping into clarity. The withdrawal that has been mentioned is real, but it is not hostile. It is procedural. Heaven operates in order, not emotion. When time concludes, it concludes. But until that moment arrives, grace is active. Grace is speaking now. Grace is offering you the chance to align your response with your awareness. If you feel the weight lifting even as the seriousness remains, that is intentional. Peace and urgency can coexist. Peace tells you that you are safe. Urgency tells you that timing matters. Together, they produce obedience without panic. That is the posture heaven desires. Do not underestimate the power of a quiet yes. Not every response is loud. Not every step is public. But every aligned response is recorded. Heaven marks agreement even when it is whispered. What matters is that it is sincere and timely. You may not see immediate results. That does not mean nothing happened. Alignment often registers first in the unseen realm before it manifests in the visible. Trust that what you align with today is already moving ahead of you, preparing what comes next. This message is ending, but the moment is not. The responsibility now rests gently, but firmly, in your hands. You have been warned, invited, and reassured. What you do with it is between you and God. And whatever you choose, know this: heaven honors honesty. If you respond, protection follows. If you hesitate, mercy still covers. But the window will not remain open indefinitely. Let this final truth anchor you. Obedience is never wasted. Even when outcomes take time, peace arrives immediately. Peace confirms alignment. And alignment is what you were created for. Do not rush past this moment. But do not delay either. Respond with clarity. Respond with trust. Respond while the authorization is still being held. Type "I receive" and respond in the comments if you are stepping into alignment now. Blessing code 1129 is now activated. What you just heard was not only for you. It was meant to travel further, to reach others standing at their own divine threshold. When you give now, you are sowing seed into living soil, and God Himself is declaring that this seed will rise as light in dark places. I am speaking to you directly because this is a prophetic moment, and obedience here carries eternal impact. Your support sends this message to souls who may never hear another warning in time. Do not let this moment pass without action. Heaven is watching response. Give now through Super Thanks membership, with the PayPal link in the description, with the PayPal QR code flashing on the screen. Release your seed now, and let God multiply it beyond what you can see.